Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, 2 lines from the bottom. The subject that we've been speaking about is Shehiyah, that is maintaining a pot on a flame. When you put a pot before Shabbos, can it be maintained on a flame? According to Rabbanon, the only way that's permissible is if you did grufa or ketuma. Either you took out the coals or you put a layer of ashes on the coals, diminishing the heat. In both situations, you're showing that you're disinterested in cooking that pot further, and therefore you're mesiach das, and there's not going to be a chashash, shema yechata. Maybe a person will then come and stir the coals and be over an isur de'araisa of havara and even of bishul on Shabbos. That, according to Chananya, is not so. Shehiyah can be done putting a pot before Shabbos, as long as it's cooked k'maichel ben drosoi, you can maintain the pot on that stove, even without grufa and ketuma. He says the only thing that's required is grufa and ketuma when you do chazor, when you put back the pot after taking it off the stove. Al kopanim, if the pot which is cooked according to the Chachamim is what's called mitztamik viraloi, by keeping it on the flame, it'll actually get worse as it cooks. Even the Chachamim would agree that you do not need grufa and ketuma. What about when it's fully cooked, but it improves itself as it continues to be cooked? What would be the halacha according to the Chachamim? Says the Gemara, Om Rabbi Yitzchak bar Nachmani, Om Rabbi Hoshaya, Kitma v'huv ara. If the stove was kitma, ashes were put onto the coals, which diminished the strength of those coals, v'huv ara, and then subsequently the coals became rekindled. Mashin alea chamin shehuchmu kol tzarkom v'tafshin shebishel kol tzarkoi. Rav Nechemya, in the name of Rabbi Shaya, says over here, you can go ahead and you can maintain the fully cooked water or the fully cooked food on the stove in this situation. Shma Mina, the Gemara says from here we can learn out, mitztamek v'yafoloi muter, that if the fully cooked item is even going to get better and more improved as it continues to cook, it's muter. And we're not going to then make a gezerah of shema yechata. Maybe he will then stir the coals and be over an isur deraisa of havara. The Gemara says you have no proof. Kashani hacha de kitma. Over here it's different because did kitma. He put ashes on the coals and thereby diminishing the coals, showing that he's disinterested in it being cooked any further. Ihochi asked the Gemara, my lememra, if so, then what is this coming to say? What was he coming to teach with this statement then? Answers the Gemara, huvara itzrichale. He's coming to teach a chiddush in huvara, the fact that it became rekindled after he was putting the ashes on the coals. Mao the same, you might think to say, kivan the huvara, hadrale lemilsa kamaisa. Komash Malan. You might have thought to say that since it was rekindled after he put the ashes, therefore he is now going to be prohibited from allowing it to continue to cook, even though it's fully cooked and to be improved. Kamash Malan, he's able to do so. Mitztamek v'yafalo is mutter. Even that situation. Says the Gemara, another case, Omar Rabbi Barchano, Omar Rabbi Yochanan. In the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Barchana teaches the following: Kitma v'huvara mashin aleh chamin shehuchma kol tzarkon v'tavshil shebishel kol tzarkoi v'afilu gecholim shel roitem. A very similar case, the Gemara says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that if he was kitma and it was v'huvara, he can maintain the pot on the fire that was completely cooked, or the water that was completely boiled before Shabbos, even using gecholim that are special types of gecholim that remain very strongly heated up and take a while to become diminished. Shmamina, we can derive from this statement, mitstamek v'yafalo is mutter, that even though something is fully cooked and it will improve in its cooking, when it continues to be on that fire, it's mutter, and we're not choishesh shema yechate. The Gemara says, no proof from there, because shiny hacha the kitma. There it's different because he did ketuma. He put ashes on the coals beforehand. Ihochi maila memra, affect the Gemara. If so, what is it coming to then teach us? Huvara itztrichale. It's going to teach us that even though he did kitma, but since it was rekindled afterwards, maybe it would be different, and thereby you could not leave it on the fire to be maintained. In fact, the Gemara, Hainuhach, that's the same exact case that we learned before. Answers the Gemara, no, Gecholim sharoisem itztrichale. Here there's a Tosefes Chidish that these Gecholim, because they're so strong and they maintain a fire within themselves, there's a fire that still burns inside of the coals, and they don't get diminished very easily. I might think here it's different. Kamash Malan, it's not different. And indeed, you can maintain the pot on the fire and allow it to then be mitztamek v'yafaloi. Rav Sheshes, Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Sheshes now says in Rabbi Yochanan, Kira shehi sikua begefes ube'etzim. If you have a stove that is fueled with gefes and eitzim, gefes we explained to be the psoiles of the olives and the sesames. When after they're taken out the oil, they're used to be ignited, ube'etzim and wood. Both of these things will produce charcoal afterwards. He says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, mashin alea chamin shelo huchmo kol tzarkon v'tavshil shelo bishel kol tzarkoi, that you can maintain a pot that is going to be fully cooked, that is not fully cooked, or hot water that's not fully boiled, and you can maintain that on the flame. Oka, if he takes it off the flame, lo yachzir ad sheyigroif or yachyitain efer. But in order to return it back to the flame, you have to do grufa ketuma. Kisovar masnisin lahachzir tnan. He learns that our Mishnah is talking about chazara, not the subject of shihiyah. That in order to then do chazara, you have to do grufa ketuma, but shihiyah you do not. Our lishois mashin afal pisha eno goru ve'eno kotum. In other words, he's saying in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that our Mishnah is like Rabbi Hananya, who argues on the Chachamim. Amar Rava travayu tananhi. Rava says that's obvious because, in fact, two things that you just said were already taught. We already learned them. Number one, shihiyah does not require grufa and ketuma. And number two, chazara does need grufa and ketuma. Lisha is tanino. First of all, when it comes to then maintaining a pot on the fire that we learned, it says ein noistin es hapas b'soichat tanor im chashecha v'loy charo al gabe gecholim ele kedei sheyiknu panel. The Mishnah over there on Daf Yud Tes Amud Beis in the first parak taught us that a person cannot put a piece of dough inside of the tanur or a charora on top of gecholim, on top of coals, unless the outer part will become crusted. Diuk hakarmu panei shori. But if you did have the outer part crusted, then you could maintain that dough or that charora inside. That's in regards to then shihiyah. So we see that shihiyah does not require grufa ketuma. Lahachzir namitanina. We also learn in gabe chazar by returning a pot onto the stove. Beis Hillel oimrim af machzirin. Beis Hillel says you have to then, even in regards to machzirin, you could go ahead and return the pot onto the stove. Ve'ad kan lo kishor Beis Hillel elik begrufa v'ketuma. Aval b'sheina grufa v'ketuma loy. And when did Beis Hillel say that you can return the pot? That's only when there's grufa and ketuma. Without that, not. So therefore, what is Rav Sheshes being mechadish in the name of Rabbi Yochanan? Hare, we learn both things explicitly, says Rava. That means that even the second part of Chazara everybody agrees that Chazara requires Gufa and Ketuma, and Shehiyah, that we're medayik from the Mishnah Daf Yud Amud Beis. Answers the Gemara, V'Rav Sheshes nami diyuko de masnisin kamash malon. Rav Sheshes is coming to be medayik from the Mishnah that's indeed going to be the din. Let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi in Dibur HaMaschil, Rav Sheshes nami diyuka de masnisin kamash malon. Almost parallel to our Gemara. Mishum deloy masni lo behedyo hakar musharu. Because it didn't explicitly teach, therefore he made a diuk hakarmu. If it does make the outer crust, then you're permitted to maintain that charara or that dough into the tanur. Va'anan demashin kideira al gabe kiro she'ena grufa ad dechananya samchinon hoyo v'tnan stam masnizin kavosei. And he says we go like Chananya, that shehiyah is permissible without grufa and ketuma. Hoyo v'tnan stam masnizin kavosei. Because the stam Mishnah and Daf Yud Amud Beis goes like Chananya, in our Mishnah. Kidamin noho karmu shoru. Because over there in Daf Yud Amud Beis, there's talking about when it wasn't completely baked, and therefore it was sufficient. Like Chananya learns, when it comes to meat, Kemachel ben drosoy, you can go ahead and keep it and be masheh on the stove, subsequently even without grufa and ketuma. The kolhani V'amar Rav Sheshes mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan kevosei de masnisin de pirkin mishum chazorahu de boy grufa aval lishos loy. And therefore Rav Sheshes is coming to tell us in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that our Mishnah indeed says that chazara requires grufa and ketuma, but shehiyah doesn't, just like Hananiah's opinion. V'kolhani amoroi da asri savrei masnisin lishos tnon. And all of these amoroim are arguing with this. They hold that our Mishnah is talking about shehiyah, whereby shehiyah you do need grufa and ketuma. What do those amoroim do with the Mishnah and Daf Yud Amud Beis? It needs to be explained. How they explain that, because it seems to be a pashut diuk. Let's take a look at Tosfos also that asks the question on Rashi that's a pashut diuk. Tosfos says in Dibur HaMaschil, diuka de masnisin kamash malon, piyush Rashi, the kamash malon, the karmu paneo shapir domi. Rashi says that the diuk that Rav Sheshes is making in Rabbi Yochanan is that if it is crusted, as the Mishnah says, Daf Yud Amud Beis, thereby you can then mash it, you can leave the dough, or in this case, a pot, onto the flame, even without grufa and ketuma. Just like Rechananya says. Ask Tosfos ve'enire, the diuk pashit hu. That's a pashit diuk. That's befeirush in the Mishnah and Daf Yud Amud Beis. The hakivan the tano achi yikumu panel. Since the Mishnah teaches until it becomes crusted, memela shamina the karmu panel shori. Then of course, once it becomes crusted, you can leave it there. V'nira lefarish, says Tosfos, what is the kavanah therefore of Rav Sheshes in the name of Rabbi Yochanan over here when he says these words that he's coming to medayek the Mishnah? When he says these words that he's coming to medayek the Mishnah, Tosfos explains, Rav Sheshes nami diyuka de masnisin kamash malon, the diyuka de masnisin de kiro osalashmin. He's coming to the medayek our Mishnah. The running machloikis, whether our Mishnah is indeed the chachamim that is the subject of shehiyah, which requires grufa or ketuma, or it's Chananya that says shehiyah is not requiring grufa or ketuma, rather the subject of our Mishnah is chazara. Also lashmin the lahachzir tnan, that our Mishnah is indeed the subject of chazara, the chesur mechzer v'hachiktani, and therefore it is Chananya who maintains that chazari require gufa ketum, but shehiyah not. Back in our Gemara, Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, Rabbi Yochanan. Rab Shmuel, name Rabbi Yehuda, name of Rabbi Yochanan, says the following: Kira shehisikua begefes ubeetzin, mashin aleho, tavshir shebisho kotzarkoi, v'chamin shehuchmo kotzarkon, v'afilu mitztamik v'yafaloi. Says Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda named Rabbi Yochanan, if you put a pot in a kira that was fueled by gefes and eitzim, you can maintain it there, so long as the tavshil is fully cooked, or the chamin is fully boiled, even if it's mitztamek v'yafaloi. So here we see a different opinion that we saw above, that above it said that mitztamek v'yafaloi would be problematic, but over here, he's saying there, Rav Yochanan, that you could do so. Omar le hahu midrabban l'Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda harav u'Shmuel the amrei travayu b'mitztamik v'yafalei osur. Rav and Shmuel said b'mitztamik v'yafalei is going to then continue to become improved as a result of staying on the fire. That's going to be osur. Omar le, so Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda says back, Otu les ana yada the Omar Rav Yosef Omar Rav Yehuda Omar Shmuel mitztamik v'yafaloi osur. Do I not know that Shmuel holds that mitztamik v'yafaloi is osur? Ki ka'amina loch, that which I said to you, le Rabbi Yochanan kamina. I was saying that in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that mitztamik v'yafaloi is mutter. Omar le Rav Ukva b'mishon le Rav Ashi. Another statement. Rav Ukva said in the name of said to Rav Ashi, Atun the Mekarvisu l'Rav Shmuel. You who live in the vicinity of Rav and Shmuel, and we know Rav and Shmuel say the mitztamik v'yafalo is osir, then Avida Rav Shmuel. Then you have to be machmir like Rav and Shmuel, and indeed not allow somebody to maintain a pot, even if it's fully cooked, if it's mitztamik v'yafaloi. But anon da avid ki Rabbi Yochanan. But we who live in the vicinity of Rabbi Yochanan, we can be mekil and say that mitztamik v'yafaloi is mutter. Ask the Gemara Malei Abaye Rav Yosef Mahu Lishois. What about in regards to shehiyah when it was not with grufa and ketuma? Says the Gemara Amalei Ha Rav Yehuda Mashu Mashulei va'ochil. He says that Rav Yehuda, he maintained a pot on the fire, even without grufa and ketuma, and he ate it just like Hananya teaches, not like the Chachamim. Omalei bar minei Rav Yehuda. I'm asking you, not like Rav Yehuda, meaning I'm not asking you according to Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda is different. That's not a proof for anything. Why? The kivin de mesukanhu afilu b'Shabbos nami shari l'ma'abelei. Since Rav Yehuda was in a state of sakana, his health was begeder a choy l'sheyesh bo sakana, and therefore even to cook on Shabbos would be mutter for him. But liveloch mai. But for me and for you, what would be the din? Could you go ahead and maintain a pot on the flame without grufa and ketuma? Like Hananya, or no, like the Chachamim? Omalei, he said back to him, Bisura Mashu. Indeed, in Surah they would maintain the pot on the flame. The Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok, Mari the Uvda Hava. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchok was medaktek in mitzvahs. And he maintained a pot on the flame without grufa and ketuma, and he ate from it. So indeed it's mutter, just like Hananya taught. Rav Ashi, Hava ka'im nekamei de Rav Huna. I was in front of Rav Huna, v'shahin leis kased de harsana v'ochil. And he maintained a pot of kased de harsana. Kased de harsana is fish that is cooked together with flour and its oil, the fish oil, and he ate it. However, mishum de ksover mitztamek v'yafaloi mutter, or mishum de kivan de isbei meicha mitztamek v'raloihu. I wasn't sure if the reason why he ate it is because it's mitztamek v'yafalo is mutter according to him, or over here because it has flour it's considered mitztamek v'raloi. Rav Nachman mitztamek v'yafaloi osir. Rav Nachman gives the ruling that mitztamek v'yafaloi is also not like we saw before in the name of Yochanan. Mitztamek v'raloi is mutter. However, mitztamek v'raloi is mutter. Klala de milsa. The general principle now is as follows: called the isbei mecha mitztamek v'raloi. Anything that has flour in it is considered to be a tavshil that's mitztamek v'raloi, and therefore will be mutter to maintain on a pot on a flame. Lebar mitavshil de lifta. with the exception of a tafshil of turnips, of lifta. The afagav the izbei mecha mitztamek v'yafeloihu. Even though it has flour, it's considered to be a tafshil that's mitztamek v'yafeloi. V'hani mili the izbei bisra. This is so long it has meat cooked with it. Aval lesbei bisra mitztamek v'raloihu. But if it doesn't have meat cooked with it, then it's mitztamek v'ralhu. V'chi izbei bisra. And when it's cooked, this turnip with bisra, with basar, and by the way, turnips, the Gemara at the end of the 6th parak in Barachos says that turnips is very harmful for the person to eat. However, if he cooks it with basar, so then it's able to break the strength of the turnips, and then it's helpful for a person. So Gemara says over here, bisra nami loy amaron. I also didn't say that it's mistamek v'yafaloi. That's only if he didn't require it to give pieces of meat to orchim, which we want to give big pieces of meat. If he would require, then it would be mitztamik v'raloi. Then it would be considered mitztamik v'raloi, and therefore you could maintain it on the flame. The Gemara concludes over here, lafda, which is a dish made out of figs, daisa, which is a type of porridge, v'tamre, and a dish made out of dates, mitztamek v'rolahen. That's considered mitztamek v'rolahen, and therefore you can maintain these dishes on an open flame on Shabbos and not be concerned that a person will then be mechate and stoke the coals.